What is up everyone, my name's Al from GamesRib, and today we're going to be discussing a time where, let's face it, in the late to mid 90s or mid to late 90s, we're experiencing a load or a sort of a deluge of first person shooters, obviously mainly on the PC, but then the console market kind of grew and grew and grew even more and kind of really wanted to kind of compete with the FPS lovers for the consoles. And you know, this is when Killing Time was kind of conceived. This was done by 3DO Company. Again, this one actually never officially got released, but you know, we've got our hands on it and it is certainly a really quite an original title. Let's take a look. So the game does kind of start off with a debug menu, which is basically for testing. And like I said, being that this wasn't actually officially released, then obviously you can clearly see this was a test version. Let's sit back and let's take a quick look at what the story's about.
I'm off the rocky coast of Maine, heading toward the island of Matinicus, alone. My Egyptology professor, Dr. Hargrove, was always recounting his trips to northern Africa in the 1930s and his search for a mystical water clock from the dynasty of the pharaoh Ramses. The clock supposedly had powers to grant everlasting life. Claimed he found it once, but whatever Hargrove found mysteriously disappeared after a visit by the expedition's patron, Tess Conway. I've picked up the trail where Hargrove left off. It has led me to heiress Tess Conway's island estate. Tess was obsessed with the occult. Her greed drew her toward Duncan DeVries, a debonair two-bit smuggler. In its heyday, the Conway estate hosted wild, extravagant parties. It has been deserted for decades. Tess and her society friends disappeared in 1932 on the night of the summer solstice. I'm just getting my first glimpse of the house. The weather's getting worse, but I'm almost ashore. I fear my life may be in danger, but I have come prepared. That's strange. My watch has stopped.
Now, for me, that is a really, really original premise. Like I said, around the sort of mid to late 90s, FPSs were left, right and centre. They were literally everywhere, and they were all trying to be essentially the same thing. They were looking at Doom, they were looking at Quake, and they were kind of going, well, can we try and mimic this somehow? Because they knew it was going to be a massive hit, and FPSs really were the thing in vogue. But this one's cool because it really is a really original idea. It really, really is. I mean, like you just saw from the story, very, very original. I mean, you just have to look at the HUD. Just starting off, look at the HUD. Your health and your ammo. Just look how vibrant looking that is. And the way it really does mimic Egypt's kind of... the way Egyptology... you know, the classic... you know, if you think Egypt, you think mummies, you think colourful, eccentric looking designs like this, and that's carried over really damn well into this already. Now, what you might already starting to notice is the fact the character sprites, they're almost like full motion kind of video captured people, if that makes any sense. Now, obviously, at this time, we were really only seeing kind of vague character sprites, but here they've kind of done FMV style characters, which adds to how kind of awesome and how kind of full on they were going with this game. Now, it really is a shame it got cancelled for that reason alone, is because it really was being individual. Like I said already, talking about the fact it's based on Egyptology and someone vanishing or people vanishing and then you slowly unearthing what's happened. Really, really cool. And I really like that. I like it because it's original and it really is really damn cool for an FPS of the time. The game does also have a nice array of weaponry. We got the flamer, we got dual pistols, we've got standard pistols, we've got shotgun, and we've even got a dual shotgun now, and even a Tommy gun, as you can see right now, which really looks quite nice. I quite like the way they've also centered it. They haven't tried to move it to the left, move it to the right to kind of make it pop out anymore, if that makes sense. They've just centered it, and you know, the sound effects for it sound great, and the way it looks are really, really cool. And like I said, the fact you're blasting apart these FMV characters, although very weird these characters are. For example, you're seeing ducks in the game. That's right, ducks, and essentially duck hunters as well as obviously many things we're about to see. Very different, almost makes me laugh, but very, very cool. Now, what you may find in some of the levels is they kind of almost feel a bit maze-like, and it does make it hard to tell where you're going. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously there's a map like a lot of FPSs had in this time frame, or even now to be fair, and you will be finding that you do need to use this, because I mean, you just have to look at the walls here, and they're really not differentiating between where you were a second ago and where you are now. It's a lot of lefts, a lot of rights, a lot of forwards, a lot of backs, kind of hidden corridors, etc. And you will find that the game, it does open up a little bit more the further you get. So in a minute you'll hit a mansion, and then go through the mansion, etc. So yeah, it does open up, but from the start you're probably going to find yourself getting lost, so make sure to use the map. Okay, here we go. Are you ready for this?
Welcome to the Conway Estate.
That's right, and that is one of the real selling points of this game, is you come across apparitions as you're going around. And they're basically telling a story as you go around. And do you know what I like? Is the fact that every single level you're going through, there's tons of these apparitions, but they all seamlessly link with pretty minimal loading time. That for back then was absolutely fantastic. That for nowadays would be absolutely fantastic. So they pulled off a real decent feat here, where it does literally tell you the story without really stopping the flow of the game, and that is one reason that you have to check this out. And like I said, the cool thing is these characters pop up the entire way through the game. Now, I'm all very much for the 20s and 30s style of, you know, the Great Gatsby style that most people know. I love that kind of Art Deco feel and look anyway, so I love the fact that this was obviously really well, pretty damn researched when they were actually clothing up for these FMVs, because a lot of the time these FMVs are cheesy and they just don't feel that well researched, whereas these play out pretty damn well, although very cheesy. And to be fair, they actually add, you know, it kind of feels a little bit like the game Cluedo, or Clue if you're American. So if you know Cluedo, that's kind of how it feels when you're going around to these characters and the story's playing out. Absolutely love it. Fantastic. Now, some of the characters or kind of enemies in this game they feel a little bit lazy. I mean, you cannot deny those right there look like a Doom enemy, don't they? And you know the one we're talking about. It's, you know, it's interesting because although the game is very original, it does feel a little bit lazy on that aspect. But, you know, I could be wrong. This could have been just kind of a nod to the Doom franchise, which I totally get, and, you know, maybe they didn't even realise it was close as it was, but it looks great, and, you know, I absolutely love this game. Now, this does also kind of play out like most Doom games, or most FPSs of the time. It's kind of find a key or kill a horde of, you know, enemies and then get an artifact or whatever. So, you know, it hasn't lost its kind of simplicity, but it has just made it that much interesting and that much playable. Now, what I will also say is the music in this game really do fit the era, as you can hear right here. Which means, yet again, they actually did think about what they were doing, and yeah, like I said, they themed it well, and it is quite evident. Now, the game came to some really decent, pretty mostly positive reviews, which is pretty damn amazing around that time when Doom was the one that everyone was looking at. So this came out a couple years after, and yeah, it was original, and it really was just that fun, and the reason people kind of really loved it is you kind of got those adventure kind of mystery kind of elements thrown in with an FPS, which is pretty unusual and clearly works. Now, I've had an absolute blast playing at Killing Time for PlayStation 1, the game that was quite obviously cancelled. The version that obviously got reviewed was the 3DO release. This is available on 3DO. But you can obviously download this, a CD image, I should say, of this for the PlayStation 1, where you can obviously burn it, or you can also play it on an emulator. So absolutely fantastic, and I say go and check it out. I've been Al from Games Rip. Hope you've liked this nice little look at Killing Time. Probably the best FPS you didn't know about. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. You can now support the channel on patreon.com/GamesRip, as well as remember to like, comment and subscribe.